All right, folks. I just have to do a justice to people who joined early. We're gonna kick off, and then people who join later, they can definitely catch up. And I will always have a recording anyway. So for today's talk, I would like to welcome my guest, Sai and Banani. They are here with me today, and thank you so much for your time. They will they will probably talk a little bit more to explain a few things than myself. I will just start the process. All right. So the agenda is pretty clear. We'll kick it off with the intro, and first 10 minutes, pretty much I blocked 10 minutes just to be really hopeful that we don't have any technical glitch or anything. All right. So the three core areas I wanted to hit today would be the impact of AI, where data science is currently heading. I get this question a lot when I'm mentoring from my mentees or even in my LinkedIn inbox. And then I will let Sai talk about data analyst, why it is still a thriving career. Yeah, and then after Sai will cover the data analyst title, we will cover the growth data science and experimentation from Banani. I think she had a ton of experience on experimental design and then particularly on the growth data science vertical. So we'll get to learn from her. Myself, I think most of you guys probably come to this meeting based on the post we have been making or the repost or sharing from mentors. I currently work in Microsoft as a senior data scientist. My previous experience has been in the tech and also briefly in the fintech. I was a service member. I worked in US Army for about 5 years, and my journey to data science has definitely been challenges and opportunities and learning. So even going from data analyst to where I am today, definitely a fun ride. Besides the working profession, what else I do, right? So I think I always like to add that, even if I don't have it in the slide bullets, is definitely community building and sharing contents on the LinkedIn. I also run Only One Outlier podcast where I bring data science experts to chat and share knowledge about their experience, their learnings. I'll try to do best while keeping my schedule tight, right? So that's not easy. And then definitely spend some time in networking. That's one of the messages I always give to anybody who's joining or to my mentees as well. It's definitely worth, building your network and having the connections. The impact of Gen AI today. So basically, the market is shifting. As we all know, it's nothing new, right? The traditional data science roles are still there, but the titles are kind of evolving with the evolving trend. We started seeing a lot of roles in the beginning, like prompt engineering, then now kind of AI engineering roles. Analytics engineer is getting more attention than data engineers. So it's almost like the AI has a little bit shifted the paradigm in the job titles and stuff. When you read the job responsibilities, it still sounds like same what you read a few years ago. Your fundamental skills of like if someone wants to be in the data science, for me, the fundamental skills kind of remains mostly untouched, right? Like you need to have strong demand on stats and maths, strong demand on Python, SQL, your core programming languages, right? Big data knowledge tools, how to be able to use PySpark, and then the ML fundamentals, right? So obviously, even the traditional ML fundamentals still matters. In a real world today, no one will expect you to use the LLM to build a new model from the scratch right away or that model in production. So you can use these models to assist you, help you, but at the same time, they are not going to be the solution builder yet, right? So, or even if it will be, then all these core fundamentals will always matter, right? Then that is very important to understand how role is shifting. This was one of the recent research from Gartner that they published really new roles that could come up in the future. Like we will have to spend time on understanding bias and ethical AI side. So there will be titles in responsible AI and ethical AI side. So people need to understand that some of the titles that will remain intact will be like ML engineers, data engineers, again, data analyst, data scientist. The work itself will be a little bit redefined, the responsibility wise, but they will remain there, right? So keep that in mind when you are learning. It's not dying, but it's kind of diversifying, in my opinion. With that being said, it goes back to the basics. If we go back to square one, how everything started, then most of the DS ML interviews still test the core concepts, right? Like I said before, LLMs can augment your workflows, but it won't replace your critical thinking or the entire pipeline, right? So the automation or the use case of LLMs is where agentic AI people talk a lot today. I would rather spend some time to kind of automate my pipeline for data pre-processing, cleaning, and that kind of work. And you can probably spend more time on doing additional research or learning new things, right? So traditionally, we have spent too much time on doing this kind of repeating workflows, right? So that can be automated, of course, and with some checkpoints that you create for test case scenarios yourself, right? So that's why I say, like, everything goes back to fundamentals. This is something that I really tell every time. I don't skip the foundations, right? When you're trying to learn the new concepts. Then comes the ML foundation. It's a good segue. I will like to spray a little bit light on the book that I recently published. If you guys haven't come across, you can go check it out. I co-authored with Karun. He also posts a lot of data science contents. For the ML interviews, people still test the core fundamentals in ML. Like, even a lot of the ML interviews I have done, both as interviewer, I still go back to the basics, right? To ask about regression concepts, like, things work, how feature engineering works, everything, rather than I ask them, how do you write a prompt to do something? That no one asks, right? So that is it. I think, how do you stay relevant? I think that's also important. I did share a few links. This is the one PDF I created, I think maybe a year ago or so, and I was looking this morning to put in the slide. Is still relevant. Everything still matters, right? Like, how do you start from your NLP basics? I would love you come up with your own project ideas. Your project is extremely important for you to do. And yeah, only reading or, going through the repos, blogs, that they are for me kind of like complimentary, or they should help you in the process, but you cannot only rely on that kind of thing, because it's not going to stick, right? And you're not going to learn much. So even simple projects, right? Think about how AI will help to on that project. So you can even write your own resume rewriter, your job matching, like there's a ton of easy setup today. It's not like when I learned the Python and the doing scikit-learn projects or ML projects, everything needs to be locally set up. I was like, which dependency file failed? Like now Google has a collab, you don't really even have to worry about local installation, do nothing, right? So even this, they have provided for you like a TPU, GPU, kind of like at least the basics for free, which is great. I think learning today is not about resources. It's just about finding the right materials to cover, and especially how do you personalize your own roadmap. That matters, right? There is no general blueprint. I wish there is one, right? So yeah, figuring out like how do you navigate your own journey and start from basics. Again, I always repeat that point a lot, but that's really the key part here. All right, for section 2, I'm gonna hand it over to Sai. He's gonna cover why data analyst is still, with the age of AI, like very good job industry, and he will talk about how you will help use AI to assist yourself than replace yourself, right? So all right, Sai, take the stage.
Thank you, Nirma. I think that's the most important part: staying relevant, staying updated in the industry.
Yeah.
No matter what in 2025. Yeah, let's get to next slide. Yeah, thank you. About me, hey everyone, I'm Sai Kumar. I did my master's in data science from UConn and then worked as a data scientist at Lego. And later that started working as a lead data analyst at Blue Cross Blue Shield, which is my current role as well. And outside of my work, I also create content on LinkedIn and on Substack as well. I write weekly newsletters. And as Nirmal mentioned, networking is really the key. That's how all three of us met on LinkedIn by creating content. Here we are. So you never know where an opportunity opens or raises. So make sure that you have your visibility, be it in terms of your posting on skills, certifications, whatever it is that your niche is. So make sure to work on your visibility. With that, let's go to next slide. We would have seen a lot of posts on LinkedIn like AI is replacing data analyst, it's replacing data scientist, but I think it's not there yet. At least you would have seen a lot of tools which can convert text to SQL, or you give a text prompt and then they give a dashboard out of it within 5 minutes. They only work when you're dealing with Titanic data sets or Boston data sets, but then they're not. They do not work at production level yet when you have millions and billions and trillions of data lying in your data warehouse. Data analyst role is still relevant in 2025. To start with, on technical sides, foundations are still there. You need to know SQL. Depending on the role, you might have to learn Python and R. And it's not just about writing queries, it's also about how you use these tools to solve real world problems. And tools like Tableau and Power BI, they are not being replaced yet. And you don't have to worry about learning both of them. Learn one of them, and then the skills are transferable. Same with cloud platforms. I think it has gone from nice to have to essential. Most companies have shifted from on-premise to cloud. So if you learn one of these tools, AWS, Azure, or GCP, it would be great. Like it sets you apart from the competition. And then depending on the role, you might have to learn machine learning. But statistics is important for any data role. Understanding p-values, confidence intervals, hypothesis testing. It's really important when you have to deal with basics of ML models. And optional, I would say learning Spark, Snowflake, or DBT is really helpful. As Nirmal mentioned, these you have your slide from Gartner. You see analytical engineering roles are pretty trending right now, at least from past 1 to 2 years. When you learn these skills, you bridge the gap between data analysts and data engineering, and you help engineering teams and data science teams to stay ahead uh, and complete the work faster. Finally, leveraging AI. People who embrace AI will save hours, time, money, and efforts to the company, and it ultimately puts you in the loop, and then it'll build a safeguard around you. So AI will not replace you yet, but a person using AI might replace you. And here's the thing, like technical skills will only get you so far. The analysts who thrive in 2025, they also nail the soft skills like problem solving, storytelling. AI coming in our day-to-day lives, this is what matters. How you present your insights to your executives or C-suite leaders, like how you convert insights to recommendations, how you tell a story out of the dashboard that you have built. How can they make decisions on what you have found in your data digging? So that's what matters. And industry knowledge again. If you are focused on one industry, make sure to have deeper knowledge on that, be it healthcare, e-commerce, or finance. If you are focused on one, make sure to read company blogs, connect with people who have been there, done that. So learn from the best, and curiosity and continuous learning. As we have been discussing from past 15 minutes, learning never ends, and there are hundreds of resources. Difficult part has been not finding resources, but finding relevant resources. So make sure to find relevant resources, follow people that you admire, that you get inspired from, ask them what would they suggest, and learn from that. And last but not least, and then teamwork. So make sure to collaborate with your colleagues, and then get to know them, learn from their experience, share your experience, work in collaboration, save time and save money. And the evolution, of data analysis from 2015 to 2025, like a lot has changed in the past decade. I think 10 years ago, a data analyst title look very different, or at least the work. Back in 2015, the job was often just a reactive. You get a request like, hey, can you pull this report? Hey, can you pull this data for me? Or can you build a dashboard? It was valuable work back then, but it was mostly descriptive, telling people what actually happened. I think fast forward to 2025, the role has transformed a lot, at least in the past 3 to 4 years. When we had ChatGPT released in December 2022, it was a game changer. So today, analysts are being asked harder, bigger questions like, say, what's driving our churn? What's the impact if you change the pricing model? We are expected to provide solutions, but not just data. You get to present it to your executives, C-suite leaders, or your managers, directors. We are not just writing SQL queries anymore. We are managing full stack analytics systems. So we need to be comfortable using DBT to transform data, Python to analyze it, Power BI or Looker to bring it all to life, and then let the executives make decisions based on what we have presented, and bring us some money to the company. And another big shift is analysts are being embedded in product and growth teams. We are sitting in same meetings as PMs, marketers, helping design experiments and shaping product roadmaps, which comes under product analyst roles and product data science roles. That's Barani will be covering in some time. And this is the story of last decade. Analysts went from report builders to strategic problem solvers. And if you are in this field, the evolution is only gonna keep accelerating. So make sure to stay relevant, keep updated. If not, if you are unable to learn the architecture behind AI models, at least I would highly recommend try to learn tools on, like, or try to learn how to use AI, leverage AI to stay relevant and then stay updated. So the future of data analysis in an AI enhanced world, like AI is changing its game. It's need to be updated. So what's next? Like, where is this field heading in next say 2 to 3 years? Because we see a new tool coming every day. Talking about a decade might not make sense, but at least we can talk about what can happen in next few years. So we are entering an era where analysts aren't just supporting the business, they're helping lead it. So think about C-suite executives. They aren't just satisfied with dashboards anymore. They want narratives. They want someone who can take all the noise in the data and then turn it into a clear, compelling story that shapes their strategy. So they're becoming more storytellers. So then there's AI. It's a game changer. The boring parts are job like writing the same documentation, writing comments, or cleaning the same type of data. So documenting every step. It's being automated in a way. It's giving us more time to understand our data better in a better way. So and that's not a bad thing, because what's left for us is high value work that AI can't do. Figuring out causal relationships, designing smart experiments, and making judgments calls that requires context and intuition. Analysts of the future, they just won't be reporters of what's happened. They will be strategic advisors. So imagine like this. So imagine you're being in a room, helping a company model different scenarios, analyze trade-offs, decide which place to bet on for the next quarter. So the shift is already happening, if not in every company, if not in every role, it's happening. But the analyst who embrace it, who partner with AI instead of fearing it, they are the ones who become irreplaceable. So again, we're quoting this: AI might not replace you, but a person using AI will replace you. So leverage AI. So on the next slide, we'll be seeing like tools that you need to, every data analyst need to know. Yep, here we are, the final slide of data analyst. So let's get practical. What AI tools should every analyst in this room know? Start with Gamma. We all know how painful is it to create presentations. You do a lot of work digging into your data, understanding trends, insights, coming up with a representation, and then this presentation might take few hours again or few days, depending on to your stakeholders. Is it your manager or director or VPs? So it takes up a lot of my time as well. So what I do is I come up with all my insights, write it on a Word document, simple text, and then I put it in Gamma. It's a free tool, at least for a few presentations. You put it in Gamma and then it gives you an amazing presentation. You just have to tweak on top of that. So it saves you a lot of time for you and your team. Like try it out. If you feel helpful, make sure to let your colleagues know and then your manager know that this can save time. So embed it into your workplace. And next comes Julius AI. Think of it as your AI data scientist. You can connect it with your Google Sheets, CSVs, database, or just ask questions in plain English, like something like grew the which product line had the fastest growth last quarter. It will write SQL, run the query, give you a chart and explanation. Give it a try, you will really love it. And then Askend, it's one of my another favorites as well. It automates your data pipelines. If you ever had a dashboard break because of the data source has changed, which happens very often, you will love this. And Fireflies AI, so you can summarize your meetings, analytics calls, capture action items and decisions. So you can add it to your meetings. After the meeting, it sends you all the summaries, documents everything, action items for everyone. And recently they have also crossed 1 billion mark. And then they had launched new features which can talk in the meeting. It can be your teammate as well. So I would highly recommend checking out them as well. And then Power BI Copilot. So you can just summarize churn drivers for Q2, and it generates visuals and commentary. So it saves you a ton of time. You just have to try change the queries or measurements on top of that. And last but not least, Claude and ChatGPT, which we have been using from almost, I would say, 2.5 years right now. So they summarize. You can use it for documentation. You can just tell them, "This is what I've done my project. Can you create a documentation?" And you can work on top of that. Last but not least is you can use any AI tool, but make sure to have the human in the loop. Do not give the authority or 100% effort to AI. So have human in the loop, check the work, double check it, triple check it, what it has, what the output is from these tools, and then tweak on top of that, fine tune on top of that. Never ever just take the raw output from an AI and then present it to your leadership. It can go the other way. It can turn around. Don't trust it to the 100% yet. Make use it to save your time, efforts, and then work on top of that. Put yourself in the loop, and then leverage it to save time and efforts again. So AI is becoming the analyst copilot. Save hours, not just minutes.
Amazing. Thank you, Sai, for shining that light on the tools. I love how you ended up. Don't trust it 100% of time. You just have to do your own due diligence, right? This always can be a double-edged sword, right? It'll save a ton of time and efforts, but you have to have some sort of judgment on your end. All right. So moving along, I have Banani, who's going to talk about growth data science. It's one of the very popular vertical within the product data science side. And then when we talk about product DS, experimentation, A/B testing, they always come side by side. She's going to explain and walk us through a few of the things like in that area. All right, welcome, Banani.
Awesome. So thanks a lot, Nirmal, for inviting us to share our experiences today. Excited to be here. And I really like how Sai concluded the entire talk. She had a lot of different insights. And as you mentioned, that definitely triple check, double check your work before you can over rely on AI. But let me start introducing myself, and then I will go into what growth data science means. So hey everyone, I'm currently working as a senior manager of experimentation and data science at Walmart, where I lead teams to accelerate growth through large-scale experimentation and data-driven decision making. So we work closely with product and marketing to answer key questions like what features do we build that can actually drive user behavior? How can we scale the conversion impact across millions of customers? So being lucky in working in Walmart, where it is like a lot of billions of users, so it really helps us to build very scalable solutions, and a lot of learning happens in that entire process. So prior to Walmart, I managed data science teams in Sam's Club, where I drove membership retention, acquisition, and build personalized campaign strategies. Prior to that, I was at Realtor.com working on real estate search optimization. Before that, I had a smaller stint at Visa, which is primarily a payment focused business where I was helping with the research-based analytics for global consumer spending. Again, my entire experience spans across 13 plus years in this entire industry, and I have had the chance to explore how data science has evolved and has driven impact across different industries. But the common thread throughout across is how can we help organizations make faster and better decisions with data. And as both Nirmal and Sai mentioned, definitely, I also do a lot of newsletters. I also share a lot of content across experimentation. And then definitely my suggestion would be to folks who are trying to get into this entire market, like focus on networking, focus on profile building, which is very key in this, at least in this market. And from the AI perspective, my personal thought is like AI is sort of an enabler. We have seen the boom of data science. We have seen the boom of machine learning, which only helped us create more intelligent solutions. And that's exactly transferable to AI as such. So cool. All right. Okay, let's move into the next slide. So here, let's take a moment to understand what growth data science really is, right? Because it's one of the most exciting and high impact areas in tech today. So think of it as an intersection where data science meets product thinking, market strategy, and experimentation. It's not about building like the most complex models or chasing the latest machine learning trend. It's about moving the metrics that really matters for the business. For example, like how many users to sign up, how many come back to the site, how many convert, and how much revenue do they generate over a long period of time. So these are the key questions that we try to answer through this particular vertical. Now, how does this actually work in practice? So teams start with a question or a hypothesis. For example, would reducing the number of onboarding steps help new users to activate faster? Or does adding more reviews to the product page improve conversions, which are very critical questions? And these hypotheses are tested and the insights are quickly recycled back into the product decisions. We have currently also discussed the fact that, it has to be learning is a very iterative cycle. We provide the feedback, and very similar thing applies to the entire product life cycle too. So this creates a flywheel, which you see on the right. And then where we are constantly analyzing data, we are generating new ideas, we are testing them, and then improving based on what we are learning. So it's a very fast paced, iterative process that is heavily built on deeper understanding between user and the business. So, and this isn't theory, right? If you look at companies like Netflix, so they have famously used data science to fine tune every part of the user journey. So may it be sign up flows, may it be personalized recommendations, may it be prompt to, upgrade your subscription services. So Walmart, on the other hand, applies growth data science across their e-commerce business. So for example, optimizing checkout experiences, running localized promotions, then improving our reactivation campaigns to activate our dormant users. These are some of the many things that we try to answer through this growth data science vertical. So Uber, for example, uses this to manage the supply and demand incentives. Airbnb relies on this to increase their host engagement and bookings from the different travelers. So it's a very widespread adoption across the entire companies and different domains, but a very similar principle. Now, then, if you really enjoy asking like why, like you want to find patterns and try to answer through data and turn them into actions with an inclination to measure what happens on the millions of users, right? So growth data science is an incredibly rewarding path. Okay, cool. So let's move on to the next slide. Awesome. Okay. So now here I've put together some concrete examples of what metrics does this vertical drive, right? Again, it is like standardized across to some extent and also customized for different companies. And these metrics are not just vanity numbers, right? They're foundation of how the product measures the success. So on the Uber level, the metrics could be like retention, activation, lifetime value, customer acquisition cost. And this definitely helps the product understand that we are not just attracting the users. Our one of the goal is to also retain them into the entire funnel. Otherwise, it becomes very leaky, right? And it becomes difficult to acquire them back. So, and most of the experiments we run as of today are intentionally designed to move one or more of these levers. So without anchoring to these metrics, it's incredibly easy to just get distracted. Let's build this, let's build that, but it has to have a quantifiable impact. And that's where this metrics helps us establish a sort of a rigor. Then moving on, like I have also mentioned some of the metrics. It's sort of in a funnel. It starts with an acquisition rate, which is like percentage of users who are signing up, then moves to an activation funnel where you want the users to explore what exactly your product tries to sell. So that's called an aha moment. Then you move into the mid funnel, which is a retention part where you have converted your users you have acquired to a more loyal base. So you start measuring like daily active users, monthly active users, and it helps us to understand if that product has actually gone into a leaky phase. Then we have like a conversion funnel. We have long-term metrics like lifetime value, customer acquisition, but this is just a snippet of the metrics we measure. However, these are like sort of in a stack ranked in sort of a funnel. And then now that we have understood the metrics, the next step is to understand what kind of strategies we actually can build out of it, right? And this often are not super complex, but simple tweaking of a single onboarding flow or changing the color of the button can actually impact a lot than you think. So they may look like small tactical changes, but if it is aligned with the right metrics, they definitely drive a lot of strategic and compounding impact. Cool. Moving on. Okay, my favorite topic, right? So now that we have covered metrics, let's talk about one of the most powerful levers. How do we assess what metrics we have moved? And that's where the experimentation or AKA A/B testing comes into place, right? In growth data science, experiments are how we test our ideas that actually work. It's not just about gut feeling or this should move the needle, right? The data will tell you the story. So, and why do growth teams care so much about experimentation? Because it brings clarity. It helps us figure out, for example, that's a new onboarding flow, right? Or a referral nudge. Does it actually shift behavior? Then it helps us tie the bigger product bets to real outcomes, and especially in a very fast-paced, resource-constrained environment where we really need to prioritize ruthlessly what needs to be built versus what needs to be not built. So then comes the entire saga of how do we design good experiments, right? So there are two parts to it. The first part is we start off with which is a gold standard, that is randomized A/B test. And these are mainly set up in order to reduce bias by randomly assigning A control, B test. And it's not about just flipping a coin, right? We have to be very thoughtful about the design. So I have put together some design principles here. So initially we start understanding if the groups are balanced or not. We run power analysis. We set up guardrails, we do a stratification and segmentation analysis to understand the user behavior, and then goes back to what Nirmal said in the foundation of all of these analysis. It's the hardcore statistical fundamentals, right? Hypothesis testing, data distribution, all of these are very key to understand if we have set up the right test and if how we are measuring the impact. So now this parallel thread is, of course, not all of the features can go into a A/B testing phase, right? For example, let's say we are rolling out features on store level, or we are rolling out pricing strategies where we can actually not set up a randomized test, right? So then comes the entire thread of the quasi-causal methods. So you must have popularly heard about difference in difference. which compares pre and post, weak propensity score matching, synthetic controls, instrument variables. I mean, these terms look very dominating right now, but I definitely my objective for this year at least is to create as much as content and share it with the community to educate how relevant these methods are and how it transforms the way we measure the different impact. So again, these techniques still answers the one prime question: did this change actually cause the outcome that we are seeing? And all in the entire heart of it is the causal inference. So whether you do a randomized test, whether you do a quasi method, all we're trying to separate is basically signal from noise and say with confidence that yes, this change led to this impact. So that's the power of experimentation in entirely growth verticals. Awesome. So if the discussion so far has actually sparked curiosity and excitement around experimentation, I want to share an upcoming opportunity to go even deeper. I'm co-instructing a cohort-based A/B testing workshop alongside Manisha, who leads the data science at Google. So this course is designed again for data scientists and product managers who want to level up their experimentation experience, and not just how to run it, but exactly why behind the real product impact, right? So it's a live hands-on weekend workshop that balances the theory and application. And the next cohort, timeline wise, it starts around August 23rd. And for the folks, particularly in this particular talk who have joined it, we are giving a special 10% discount using the code AB10. So I think Sai has also shared the link for you to go ahead and register and check it out. Just a sneak peek into, next slide. Is a sneak peek into what we are going to cover. So basically designing experiments from product context perspective, choosing the right metrics. Sometimes, a lot of times actually, we run into edge cases. How do you estimate an impact, interpret that? Then most importantly, all of us agree that, data storytelling, right? How do you communicate the results to your stakeholders so that it can influence their decisions? And basically building an entire test and learn culture and rigor within the organization. So, yep.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for both. That's definitely very insightful contents and conversation we just had. Moving along, I think, of course, we are in the Q&A mode. Anyone who has some questions, there is few ways to ask. The most preferred way is opening up the Q&A section and dropping your question there. And then if folks feel like, they want to come off mute, come off camera if you desire, then of course, there is a hand raise feature, right? So please raise your hand and I'll go on the queue. All right. And I'm going to probably start answering these questions live, any I can cover. And then if there is repetition, of course, I'll say it was covered. Depending on the area that this question kind of like belongs to, I will also get help from my guests today to redirect the question to them as well. All right. So first question here, I saw it from Luxika. She said she has 10 years of experience as a business analyst and pivoting her career into data analyst and data science in future. She's in the starting point, taking courses to build a portfolio. It's been hard to get into the job market. I think that's everywhere, not only in Canadian job market. Have not received any interviews yet. How do you improve myself to get interviews? I think for me, this is kind of like most common questions across the board. So interview getting most of the times it's not you doing something wrong. The market is very competitive right now. However, I will check a few of the things that you can control. Would be revisit your resume. There is no spray and pray method. You cannot use one master resume to apply for all roles. At the same time, you don't want to customize for every single role either. So try to figure out what kind of common pattern you have on your resume and the job. So it's ultimately kind of boils down to that different data science role types, whether you are more focused on the BI focused role, then, highlight your skills of what is relevant for BI, dashboarding, reporting, analytical thinking, that kind of nature. If your role apply for very core ML type, please highlight the ML tools and technologies, right? So the common mistake I see on the resumes, because I do quite a bit of reviews, is very generalized copy, and they are looking for applying for product data science and ML data science, for example, with the same resume, and it's not going to work. Like Banani explained, the product data science is, it's kind of designed differently, right? You focus on experimental design, puzzle analysis, right? Hypothesis testing. That's a lot of things that goes in that. While in the ML, they look for core ML skills, right? Like having someone traditional ML approach, deep learning approach, natural language processing, whatever the role is defining. And if there is one resume that can sit right in between, that's a weak resume. That can happen, but that's a very weak resume. So you probably have to figure that piece out. So yeah, that is it. And then the next question, how do you suggest to apply to roles when majority requires 2 years of experience? Hiring managers value certifications. Maybe I'll let Sai speak on that, this one.
Okay, I see the question, right? So first thing, what do you suggest when you majority of roles require 2 years of experience? I think at that part, there's nothing we could do, but what I would do is get some real-time experience. It can be in terms of voluntary, freelance, or unpaid internships, because we can't get 2 years of experience in 2 months, but what we can get is get some unpaid internship or real-time experience. Reach out to early stage startups, get some hands-on experience, and then post about those on your LinkedIn, get some visibility, and then get into their DMs. That's a way around it. What kind of post or projects should we share on LinkedIn to attract recruiters or mentors? So I see a lot of posts on projects where you only use like one tool, maybe just an Excel, just project on SQL, or just project on Power BI, or just ML. But I would highly recommend building end-to-end projects, because in industry you will be not just using SQL or not just Python to build projects. You'll be integrating different tools for different use cases. So try to work on that, and then come up, start with problem statement. Don't start with I have to build ML project. Start with problem and then build on top of that. That's one thing that I would recommend. And do hiring manage value certifications and personal projects more than academic performance. Personal projects more than academic performance for sure. And certifications is a gray area. Certifications alone might not help, but when you do a project out of the knowledge that you have gained from certification, that certainly do help. So focus on real world projects. Sai, with LinkedIn present, what advice would you give a fresher to building a compelling profile? Start with sharing your skills, your certifications, your projects, your knowledge that you have so far. Or if you're learning a course from, say, any platform that you have taken part of, start sharing your knowledge. Like if you have learned SQL, share on LinkedIn what have you learned. And then if you're learning Power BI, share on LinkedIn what have you learned. And engage with other posts as well. It's not just one way, it has to be two-way. The more you engage, the better your visibility will be, and then the more you connect with other people. Their network will get to know about you, you get to know about their network. So cross engage with other posts, and then make sure that you're consistent. You don't have to post every day, but at least 3 to 4 times a week is what I would recommend. It can be on your skills, certifications, projects, your knowledge, what you're upskilling on. It can be on your story as well. If you have a compelling story, or if you just want to put out your story, like you faced a lot of rejections, you got to a place where you can feel safe right now, or you had a bad work-life balance, you moved to a better company, start sharing that. A lot of people will be connecting to your story. Your story is unique.
Sai Kumar, one question from you, that we build projects, okay? We build random projects, but the thing is that we put a lot of effort, energy, and time into it. And at the end of the project, we get to know that it possesses no business value. So, what are the core business problems, the core business burning issues that we as an undergrad student must work on, so that at the end of the project, when we built it, we get revenue from it, we get a skill boost, and we get a good job opportunity?
That's a great question. You might not have the revenue part, but then what I would do is, if you're focused on one industry, say healthcare or financial sector or e-commerce, so try to read blogs on, like, say, if it's an e-commerce, go to Walmart. If it's an healthcare, go to Blue Cross. Read their blogs and see what problems they're solving, and then go to Kaggle or datagov.com. If you find any data set, you find that data set and then solve on top of that. With the rise in AI, scraping the data has become a lot easier. So you can write a Python automated script and then pull the data from different websites. So as I mentioned, leverage AI here as well. If you don't know what problem to solve, maybe ask ChatGPT what problems that e-commerce companies are facing right now, healthcare, financial sector. So leverage ChatGPT or leverage AI to find problems, and then maybe leverage AI in your project as well. Build end-to-end pipelines. This is what attracts recruiters and hiring managers and sets you apart when you're an undergrad. And same again, online presence.
To add to that, I wanted to give an hidden tip. I have been in hiring panel for like 5-6 years now, right? So basically, when people I ask a question like, can you walk me through a project end to end what you have done? I really appreciate if the people pick up a project which has actually downside, because if everything is honky dory and you are trying to explain, okay, everything, I moved this needle, I was able to generate much impact. So we are mostly looking from the learning perspective, right? What went wrong? What were the challenges you faced and how did you overcome it, right? So that's a trick question that a hiring manager actually puts you through. So I'm not saying that most of your projects would fail, but if you can pick something, it's a failure is entirely to feeding into the learning aspect, which is very critical, because in the professional environment too, 80 to 90% of our initiatives actually go through a very rigor failure process until it can become a success. So on the flip side, if your projects are failing, there is a learning curve for you. It's how glass half full, half empty.
Learning matters, and
Yeah.
you learn more.
Yeah.
Definitely. That was a good discussion. Great question. Thanks for bringing that up. I think it is important. Like initially, you don't see the business side when you're in academia, right? And it's challenging. Like, what project to do? Is my project even worth it to put in a portfolio? One thing I always suggest my mentees, and when I'm mentoring them for project ideas, like when you go look into the data sets from Kaggle or anywhere else, and first thing I suggest is go outside of Kaggle as well. So don't only think in the Kaggle. The data set you get, there is a defined problem statement, and try to reframe the 10 different ways. For example, a ride-sharing company, try to forecast the price or maybe the ETA they're trying to predict. That's a common question everyone does. But then you figure out what else you can do there. Can you frame that question a little bit differently and say that, hey, what are the factors that affect the ETAs? Which side you should improve the algorithm from, right? Is it just focusing on the from app, like entire end-to-end ETA, or like, saving time from request send, pending in the queue, driver accepting it? What is it, right? So there's so many. When you see one metric, there is a breakdown of that metric, of course, right? In small or multiple pieces. To understand the business side, you're going to have to think about a little bit deeper, in a way that if you do something, like as I mentioned, there's no ROI. You can directly do it with the one academic project that you create based on the data set the company has shared. But then what would be the ETA if this experimentation or if this project would be placed in production, right? I mean, that can always be a hypothetical scenario, but you can think through it, right? So if you say maybe a minute of ETA in a time, what impact it makes in a skill, right? So I think initially it could be a little tricky and hard to think through that kind of process, but as you do the project and start kind of getting your brain towards that direction, I think a lot of good insights will eventually come. And when you do the project, of course, end-to-end project, even if you do a simple one, gives you exposure that, hey, when you talk in the interview process, you know what are the things to cover, right? So that's always the advantage anyway. So anyhow, I covered already a few questions that was there for the roadmap and stuff that like we can provide that. I think Sai has been posting in his newsletter and stuff what would be the good roadmap for data analyst. We'll definitely share on a follow-up email. I think coming up with the project ideas, that is the next question here for the portfolio. One simple suggestion I would do on this question is basically focus on what is your interest and what domain or what industry you're trying to get in, right? You're going to have focus on that kind of data set and project. While initially you can have diversified portfolio, at the same time, you're going to have multiple project types. I've seen portfolio where people only do the sales data or e-commerce data, and then they are like applying everywhere, even in the other industry like healthcare. There is a disconnect, right? So one is the domain thing, one is like the variation in the project, doing like unsupervised learning, supervised learning. Even some project could be just analytical based, right? So getting the data, curating data, moving the data, reporting, building some sort of insightful dashboard or platform. If you're focused on the BI side of data science role, that will definitely add value. You don't really have to build any ML models, right? So sometimes I feel like people, at least based on a lot of conversations I'm having with the folks in the early career, think too much, right? I mean, thinking is good, but you're going to have to, in a way, trust the process as well, right? So project ideas is like come up with your own. I think that's the best way I can say, and then try to kind of see in the market if that project you do, what kind of industry you can target. Like you're applying for supply chain and industry, for example, logistic company, then do something to demand forecasting, that kind of project, right? It makes sense to have close tie with the domain. I think that usually is a best bet. How is agentic AI changing the experimental landscape? I think this is perfect for Banani.
Yeah, not yet. So as most of you have already mentioned, so AI definitely helps to build a lot of operational efficiency. So if you see the entire life cycle that I mentioned, like, iterate, build, analyze data, each of them requires a lot of investment from both the analyst side or the data science team side or the product manager side, right? One example I could give is that a lot of effort goes into generating hypothesis from the product end. So they look at user research data, they look at historical A/B testing results and stuff, and 5-6 data sources, they come up with a product hypothesis. That part can entirely be offloaded to AI if that is done properly. So then comes with the entire agentic AI system where the agents can talk to each other and then build an entire product roadmap and also deploy it, then do experimentation. But are we still yet there? It's a long road ahead, because it's very important to understand the risk downside and the risk side of it. So it'll take some time to evolve, but it's like happening in bits and pieces right now.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Another question I was dropping in the chat, but I'll cover here. LLM skills, RAGs, and all kind of things that we see in the job description, right? Sometimes that can be intimidating, right? Like when you're applying for as an entry-level role and the job description talks about everything like a rock star. Yeah, I'll take a step back. Their job description is a wish list, the way I look at it, right? I mean, they want everything, of course, but what is the core thing they're trying to solve? That you need to figure out from that job description or maybe with the hiring manager conversation if you happen to get it, or even with the recruiter. Like you always need to ask a lot of questions as well. Don't always think that they will ask you questions and you are always in the recipient end. No, right? So any hiring process, a candidate has to show their interest level as well. So basically, I mean, there will be some basics being asked for today's LLM industry for most of the roles. At least in my opinion, they're not yet hiring. Like if they are hiring, it's probably going to be the LLM expert or the AI engineer expert or the research scientist. Focus on particular problem, then that's okay. For the most of the generalized data science role, as long as you know the basics of how AI can be augmenting, like Sai had a slide, right? If you just present yourself as a bare bone data analyst versus you present yourself with some tools and scaling of that AI tools, for example, you can highlight on your resume, you can talk on your interview process as well that, hey, some of the projects you did was like, I use this AI tool to help me build this, right? Basically, if you focus on the ML side, currently I've seen many use cases out there. One of the fundamental use case people often overlook is advancing the feature engineering process. In the past, we never had any mechanism to process all these images, unstructured text, to translate into features. We had to do it by ourselves, right? Create tokens, n-grams, bigrams, whatever we did, right? The whole embedding journey was, pretty long process. Now it's just one API call and making sure you select the right embedding model, and then you have your embeddings features, right? You attach the emails, attach documents, summarize text, summarize tokens, summarize embeddings. You get it, right? Now, all these enriched features can drastically improve your model performance, right? Because ultimately it's about what good features you create to build a model. So that's my opinion. I think RAG, LLMs, embeddings, these concepts are not new. Even before in my opinion, before like a GPT hit, right? So there was definitely the era of RNN, LSTM. You always go back in a way that what was the problem and why we invented all this. That always kind of my way of learning is that, like, why we didn't solve simple thing, bag of words. What was the problem, right? It lacked the context. Then we came up with the word embeddings. That's the birth of word embeddings, right? So, and then we say that, hey, these models, the RNN, LSTM, they're good, but they couldn't hold much bigger context. Their memory was very small. What do? And then we come up with this self-attention mechanism. All this research that people have done is basically built up upon each other. So right now, when we surfacely just go and jump into learn the transformer architecture itself only, and if you don't understand why we got here, it's going to be challenging, so. All right, what type of projects should make for internships? I think that is, again, we kind of answered, I feel like, focus on domain specific, go outside of Kaggle, things like that. What companies expect to a fresher for data science roles? I think the question you have, I think we covered on the discussion as well, like the tools for data analysts. Data engineers also have a lot of the AI related tools today, I guess. And again, I think when AI tools comes in the market, like first thing you do is you understand your role, what you are doing, or the role you are trying to apply, and where and how it can assist you. That's the fundamental thing, the first thing to do, right? And then is it going to be worth for me to learn? How much of my work is going to probably help to reduce, right, if I learn this tool? So those are some of the fundamental questions you ask. All right, so companies like Meta have started incorporating AI. I think they are in the talk, not yet. Do you know any tool that simply act like assistant, asking a whole code, simulating the interview scenario? Any one of you guys come across that tool? Sai, you want to take that?
When you mean act as an assistant instead of writing the whole code, if you want to simulate the interview scenario, I would highly recommend checking out Interview Query. So you can have an AI interview you, and I think Interview Master has also come up with that. So Interview Query is a one good tool that I would recommend. You can have an AI interview yourself on SQL or Python or just any topic that you have. So give it a try, and then I think that should help you. But then, as Nirmal mentioned, I think it's still in talk, but then I see at least 3 to 4 posts out of 10 posts are on Meta AI right now on LinkedIn.
So I have seen a few people work in Meta, and while they were coding, if they just start coding, it'll understand and it'll start automatically giving a few suggestions for possibly what the next step or what is the next line of code they are going to write. So I was just hoping or thinking, is that how they're going to probably conduct the interview? So that is the reason I was just asking if you know any course, just to stay ahead of the curve, and I'm already in the interview process. So that is, that was my question.
If it's just
But
auto-complete, I think Google Colab has that. Like you can just type in the code and then it completes the code for that. So if you just want an assistant like that, if you want mock interviews, check out Interview Query. If you just want an autocomplete feature for the code that you're writing, check out Google Colab for Python. I think it's the best.
And then one thing I would add for all the folks in the call, to if you're looking for AI assisting tools for interview process, you can actually have your own session to do it too with the ChatGPT or any model, right? Ultimately, when Meta will implement this, in my opinion, they're trying to use their open source model. Obviously, they're going to leverage their Llama model to fine tune it for this process, the whole interview process. They might even be looking for collecting more training data, right, to improve their model. And I think the idea is like when you are preparing for it, like you can have a session open, start from the basic, right? Like when I do the mock interviews with my mentees, I definitely get help from the tools like ChatGPT to at least initially frame the problem. And then I start asking so many follow-ups, things, questions to create the ultimate mock interview session with them, right? And it has worked well because initially I have an idea what sections I would cover, maybe like SQL, then case study, and then, like use the same kind of like a schema for case study and what kind of other questions, follow-up questions I can add on this case study. So ultimately, you are preparing to kind of simulate how the interview process will look like. And it starts from one question and kind of builds upon each, right? If you're looking for technical only, then of course, it's even easier, I guess, to ask for the mock kind of sessions with these models too. Hey, I'm only looking for practicing SQL. Start from the simple SQL question to medium and advanced, right? So obviously, adaptive way of asking the questions with it will definitely help.
Yeah, I haven't come across such kind of interviews. I think it's in a better stage right now, probably. But then it becomes even more important to understand the structure component of it, right? If coding and all this prompting, it'll become easier for you to implement it. Then the more important part is to what is the outcome that you're trying to drive through it, like system architecture, the entire process flow. How do you think through it? How do you build through it? What is a logical way of how you are driving more business decisions or product decisions? That over indexes over implementation and just the coding aspect of it, right? It's a very interesting phase that we are going to transition into, which I think is the right thing to do, because over the last years of experience that I've gained so far, if one thing I can tell to go back and over index on that is going to be data storytelling. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how amazing methodologies or algorithms we implement, somebody's going to ask, what does it even mean? What does it even mean for the business? What do I do with this? So it'll be interesting to see how it transforms.
Yeah, that's a great insight. So I have someone who has a raised hand. I will definitely try to focus on answering the Q&A as well, but I will give you the stage as well. Addis, you can ask a question if you have one.
Hello.
Yeah, hi, I can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay. Thank you for sharing your ideas and experience. I've been following your work for a long time. LinkedIn. At this, from academia, I don't have any experience on this. So in academia, I have a strong background in ML, basics, statics, and optimization, and also algebra in advanced level. And also, I have published a lot of papers. I did my PhD. But I want to shift to that industry side. I want to know where should I focus on, like.
Yeah. So let me cover it briefly at the highlight. I think we already beat this dead horse many times. I think it kind of goes back to the question that you have is pretty much common across the board that we have seen and answered many times. What type of data title or the career path you should choose? I think that's not like what I would get a help from the mentors or anyone, because that's the fundamental question. Like, you should figure out your interest. Forget about the market hype for a second, right? So, I mean, a lot of the times people make a mistake about just following the title based on the market hype or something, right? And they don't have any connection. They don't have any interest. They don't have any ties to establish that as a career. You can sustain 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, then you will not succeed. So that's why you take a step back, think about in a retrospect, like what kind of roles, in the data analyst, many variations is your good fit for your skills. That's the first thing, at least in the current level. I mean, improving and getting to another stage is always there. That's how the growth happens, right? But initially you have to figure that out, like what kind of role will interest you. Once you figure that piece out, then the mentor can help. Okay, I want to do data or BI focused data science role. What are the tools? What are the skills? What are the things I need to do? And then the mentors can chime in. Mentors should not chime in to tell you that do BI versus ML role, right? That's one thing. For the deployment, of course, I think that maybe I'll tell you a tool today that will be obsolete tomorrow. It again goes back to fundamentals of CI/CD principles, ML ops, right? That's staying there, right? So tools behind the scene can change, right? You can build anything on the AWS, like Sai was mentioning earlier, or today in the Azure ML. Any tool I can use to build. The underlying thing is, how do I train model? How do I set up the experiment? How do I set up the feedback loop? How do I set up the monitoring? All that thing is just the features for all of these tools. That means technology itself doesn't really matter. The core fundamentals of how CI/CD build, process, everything works. That goes back to the basics of engineering, in my opinion, right? So I think those are the few things I can suggest there. All right, moving on. There's a question for Sai.
My experience in manufacturing, more than 6 years, where I've used data. How can I best translate this? And then relevant source of networking opportunities in manufacturing analytics. How can I better transition? Okay, I think that's a great question. But one thing that I see is you are already doing more analytics work than you think. So you're in and then data for almost 6 years. That's a pretty good experience that you have. And when you say like you have used improve operations, like that is analytics. So I think it's a trick to reframe it. So I think just leverage that to put it on your resume that you have done the data work. Next is, I'm not sure which tools that you have used in the past 6 years, but if you haven't used the tech stack that I have mentioned in data analytics slide before, I would highly recommend start learning those tech stack and then work on projects that like we have been discussing in the past few minutes in the Q&A section. That's one thing. And coming to networking part, one thing that I would recommend is find your come up with your target companies in the manufacturing industry or any industry that you're targeting. I think you mentioned manufacturing domain. So find companies that comes under an umbrella of manufacturing and connect with people who have that your target title be data analyst. So connect with them, understand how they've gotten the domain knowledge, what they have done, or what did their success look like, and what did their failures look like. Connect with those people so you build your network in your target companies. And then when the time comes, when you have your resume, tech stack, projects ready, you just have to reach out for referrals or mock interviews, or if you find an opportunity, you know whom to reach out. So these are things that I would do if I were in your shoes.
So next question is for Banani. I think it says the session for prep vector is going to be focused on basics or focus on intermediate to advanced level users as well.
So it's going to be focused. We're thinking of it as a more foundational 101 course. So we have opened it for both data scientists and product managers equivalently. It's going to definitely tell you the basics of how do you run experiments, how do you decode the different results. So it's very exhaustive. And also we are going to take examples from the different case studies of the relevant companies like Uber, Netflix and stuff. So once we finish that, definitely there is a plan to have a course for the intermediate folks too, which is we are going to label it as a 201. It's definitely going to be but first of all, we have to place the foundation and get folks up to speed to push them to the next level.
Yeah, thank you. The next question is still for you again, so I'll keep going. A role of marketing mix modeling in experimentation and growth analytics, mostly.
Yeah, that's a pretty good question. So currently, mostly experimentation is focused primarily on the product end, which is like after the user comes to the site or the apps. So marketing mix modeling, definitely we can invoke experimentation in there. It has very much relevance. Why we do it that? Because we wanted to understand the different channel spend. We want to optimize the experience. We want to get in the right set of people into our apps and site traffic. So we think of it as for example, if you want to optimize your emails that you're sending it to your user base, right? The control is an existing email that you send. The test could be a new optimized or better experience of emails. So that can be one use case where you can invoke an A/B testing and post that. Once the user is on the site, then you can invoke a marketing mix modeling to understand what is the down the funnel impact, right? Or there is a second use case which I can think on the fly is basically optimizing. Let's say you are moving out from one existing marketing mix modeling as large as first touch to, let's say, last touch attribution. So if you can compare two different algorithms, setting up an A/B test and understanding the down the funnel metric, that can also be another use case. So very relevant. Experimentation is very relevant to test anything and everything, of course, with definitely caveats. But yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think there is another one for you. People working in the product DS already have some experience, 9+ years of experience in experimentation and A/B testing mostly, but she wants to focus or build more into the causal inference side. Any suggestion?
Yeah, so A/B test is a causal inferencing technique. That's the randomized test is a sort of a foundational or gold standard of it, right? So you're just halfway there. But then depending on the different use cases of your company, right? Like we have to be very aware of where we can apply it versus not. So there are two parts to it. Either you figure out within your company or within your teams by cross collaborating where you can implement, where you can brainstorm and build causal solutions. Or the second part is first understanding the foundation of it. There are so many different material out there. I also share out a lot of different content around this entire ecosystem. There are some other leading people who share a lot of different content to bring you up to speed. So both ways you can still consider, like parallelly try to understand this and attack this problem. But yeah, depending on your interest level and your depth of experience and stuff.
Thank you for answering that. I had asked that in the chat. I had another part to it. And so I was looking at wanting to reach out to some mentors across the industry. I've tried doing that via LinkedIn. What are your suggestions? A lot of times people don't get back. In my case, like I'm not looking or asking for referrals or anything. I'm looking to learn and get some guidance from folks out there. So do you have any pointers on that? And the second piece is, as I want to take my career forward, like if I want to break into companies where they have stronger experimentation programs and things like that, do you think a professional certificate or adding something on top of what I bring to the table currently, an additional degree or anything of that sort, would it be meaningful? Like, would it help my case and things like that?
So to the first question, right, then you have to reach out to the right set of people. I'm sure definitely there are so many industry professionals who will love to help you out. First of all, understand whom to reach out. Secondly, optimize the way that you reach out to people. Make it very obvious, like if you can have a half an hour overlap or chat time and what's your exact objective. So you can work on that in order to get more responses. So the second part is, do we need to do more? Since you already said that you already have experience in product data science. So it's very relevant, right? You just have to now take the leap and understand where you can invoke your causal techniques and then present yourself as one of the SME in that. So you have to decide a path for yourself to transition there, right? And a lot of companies right now has evolved from just A/B testing. If you also go like proper companies like Netflix and Uber, they have started adopting causal in a more advanced and more a scalable way. So you can have a path for yourself, first understand the techniques, then reach out to folks who can actually help you mentor it. And then you can also implement some of these in your current organization where there'll definitely be some use cases which is relevant to causal inferencing, and then maybe take it up there. And then, when you're applying or you're going for larger companies who do scaled experimentation, this process will help you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Our next question is for Sai. I think this is a good one. The compliance related privacy regulations, you work in the health industry too, and where all of this matters. This is another thing where people are jumping into the AI, the hype or the wave, but at the same time, what are the work you should be aware of, or as an IC or data analyst, data scientist, whatever, how much of it is currently in process or matter?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. One of the important questions that we need to ask as an individual and for companies as well. And one that every company should be thinking about right now. I think the shorter version is set the rules before you even touch the tools. So companies, they need clear policies about what data you need to put in AI and then what needs to stay private. So you need to decide on like if this data can be fed into AI or not. That's something that needs to be set upfront. And then for us analysts, like the safest habit is to strip out anything sensitive like PII information, no emails, no names, no account numbers, no SSNs, whatever it is sensitive data that you're working on. Maybe give it a schema. Like I have name data, I have email data. How do I extract name from email? Ask that question, but do not give it names and emails and ask it to extract for you. So that's something that you need to keep in mind. And it's not just for individuals as well. Organizations, I think they have to vet out themselves as well. Is the data stored? Where is it stored? Is the tool compliant with HIPAA or GDPR? So make sure that your leadership is aware of that and you are aware of that. Go through your company policies and finally document what you do. If you are ever asked like how this tool was used by a customer, you can show the process and then you can stay transparent. So bottom line, AI can make us faster, but protecting privacy shouldn't be optional. It needs to be put in place for sure. It has to stay front and center.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. That was a great question. Usually people always cover the technical side, but the compliance and regulation side is very important if we are in data. All right, so I'm going to have to wrap it up. Sorry, folks, if I am not able to go through all the questions. For the most part, we did really good. We covered more than 20 questions. Everyone who has signed up, regardless of whether you joined or not, will get an email followed up by the slides as well as the recording of today's talk. And if there is anything that you feel like, wasn't covered or you wanted to know, then please feel free to connect with all of us in LinkedIn. And like we said already, networking. So that definitely is the key. I really hope this talk was really helpful, and it's not possible without my guests. So thank you again, Sai and Banani, for doing this and taking time off your busy schedule. And I would like to thank everyone who joined. And until next talk, please keep following us for contents in data science. And I wish you all the best for everyone, wherever you are in your data career. And learning is a process. It's continuous, right? Take care. Bye-bye. Have a good weekend.
All the best, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.